Perhaps someday we will unravel every horrifying secret that lies at the heart of the cradle of civilization. But for now, we are delving deeper into shocking discoveries. Experts are reconsidering the course of evolution. What has been found in Africa is turning our previous knowledge and perceptions of our world, its past and future, completely upside down. From extraterrestrial stones to skeletons, or vice versa. Are you intrigued? Today we will show you 11 terrifying discoveries made in the African deserts. A puzzling mystery for scientists and archaeologists is a blue stone found in the country of Sierra Leone, in West Africa, on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. In 1990, Italian geologist Angelo Pittoni stumbled upon these unusual stones during an excavation. He had never seen an opaque blue stone like this on African soil, despite having extensively studied all the local minerals. The locals shared a legend about the origin of the finding. The celestial stones were actually cursed creatures that once lived with the gods in the sky. But as punishment for their actions, they were transformed into stones and forever banished from the heavens to the earth. A complicated story. Pittoni wanted scientific data, so he sent the stones to laboratories worldwide. The analyses revealed that the blue stones had a unique chemical composition never seen before. And despite belonging to Earth, they were called celestial stones due to their composition, which sparked many debates and theories. One of them suggests they are fragments of a meteorite that fell to Earth. This likely happened so long ago that even the crater has weathered, and the meteorite fragments are deeply buried within the layers of the Earth's crust. The color of this stone is also very peculiar and does not resemble any known mineral such as lapis lazuli, for example. Its composition has nothing to do with earthly minerals, and according to scientists' assumptions, it has an extraterrestrial origin. Whether you like it or not, Africa is splitting in two. And this fracture is truly extraordinary and terrifying to think about what will happen next. However, the division of the continent does not mean that the land will be split into two parts, although that is actually what is happening here. It is most likely that a new ocean will emerge from the cracks in Africa. Of course, this process will be gradual and take millions of years. But the continental fracture means that we will have a sixth ocean on planet Earth, a phenomenon that will forever change the geology of the continent. In 2005, a 35-mile-long rift already formed in the desert of Ethiopia. Africa is part of the East African Rift, and we have always known that the African plate has been splitting. But the new rift in the Ethiopian desert indicates that the division is not as gradual as we thought. This is worrisome, as it is terrifying to think about the future. The only fact that is clear is that it's inevitable this fracture will eventually form an ocean between the two new plates. Countries that previously had no sea access, such as Ethiopia and Uganda, will gain their own coastline. This event could potentially boost their economy and provide them with a link to the world. The potential to become a small, independent continent on its own could spark conflicts. We hope that is far in the future and that this terrifying fracture won't bring anything harmful. In Namibia, there exists a true mirage, and paradoxically, it's one of Africa's most eerie and grim sights. Skeleton Coast in Namibia is highly famous and receives special attention. It's a broad coastal line, and its most intriguing feature is the sand dunes that rise behind it. The coast is inhabited, but simultaneously, it's an enormous open-air cemetery with wild animal skeletons, such as lions, hyenas, and other predators scattered for miles and miles. The coastline is made up of piles of white sand, making you think you're in the Caribbean Sea. But these eerie skeletons definitely remind us that this isn't a resort, but rather a Bay of the Dead. In addition to the skeletons, you'll find hundreds of abandoned or shipwrecked vessels near the coast. For centuries, this deserted beach has been the final resting place of mighty ships that once proudly sailed the turbulent ocean waters. We can only guess what happened to the people on board. From time to time, Africa reminds us why it's considered humanity's birthplace. For instance, in the groundbreaking discovery of 2013, scientists and archaeologists found a new, unknown species of humanity, a hominid that lived alongside modern humans' ancestors. This extinct species was discovered in Africa in the Rising Star Cave system, which was crucial in marking this place as the starting point of Homo sapiens evolution. The team knew that venturing into the cave would rewrite history. The innovative venture started when two amateur archaeologists, Stephen Tucker and Rick Hunter, decided to focus on the cave's least explored part. Their risk paid off in a very isolated part of the cave where they found a chamber with doors so narrow that a human couldn't pass through them. But the journey had to continue, and Tucker and Hunter were amazed when they first saw inside the chamber, a place resembling a burial, covered with hundreds of bones. These bones looked primitive with small jaws that definitely did not belong to modern humans, making it clear that professional anthropologists' intervention was needed. According to one theory, this chamber was indeed a burial place for at least 15 individuals. But here is the enigma. Burial and funeral-type chambers is a unique feature of sapiens, so it's likely that these species were not entirely primitive. Their bone structure was notably different from ours, but there were also some striking similarities, like the teeth. This newly discovered species, named Homo naledi, is a hybrid species between the primitive and modern human. This ancient human seemed to have civilization in terms of respect for the dead. They buried them, unlike previous species that simply left the bodies to decompose, and some even feasted on the dead. Undoubtedly, this finding rewrites the history of human evolution. There's no doubt that the achievements and progress of the ancient Egyptian civilizations are hard to underestimate. Archaeological evidence shows that they had top-notch urban planning, a well-developed ritual business, and they literally built pyramids with their bare hands. It's possible that this is why there's a hypothesis that extraterrestrials helped the Egyptians in constructing one of the world's wonders. Others believe that the civilization kept the technological prowess of their great inventions, such as the pyramids, a secret, and historical evidence of these technologies simply hasn't reached us. The Egyptians, it seems, guarded their know-how very well, and it appears that the temple of the goddess Hathor in Dendera served as a repository for that knowledge. The temple itself doesn't look intriguing, but the inscriptions on its walls have sparked much debate. In one of the inscriptions, there's a clear depiction of a priest standing on lotus flowers, holding a staff entwined by a snake in his hand, and the snake seems to emit beams of light. We can also see people surrounding the priest as if they were trying to follow the light or witness a miracle. Now, considering the close intertwining of Egyptian mythology with religion, let's suppose that these drawings could be a typical mythological plot or a story about a deity. Isn't that right? However, historians have an opposing opinion, suggesting that all the depictions of the priest and the snake are not religious symbols, but an early reminder of a light bulb. The slithering snake is actually a filament or wire. The lotus is a kind of nest that gives life to the light bulb, and the column or tube surrounding the snake is actually an early version of a lamp fixture. Historians have dubbed this theory the Dendera light bulb, and even though there's no archaeological evidence confirming whether the Egyptians had electricity or not, this theory remains popular to this day. The Egyptian pyramids hold countless secrets, and many archaeologists continue with ambitious endeavors to unravel some of them. Some have hit the jackpot, but many expeditions have ended in complete failure. Archaeological missions are our sole source to learn more and more about the mighty Egyptian civilizations, and now we know enough about Africa's antiquities to write books. But is it enough? In 2015, a Czech archaeological group stumbled upon the tomb of a previously unknown royal family, in which they discovered a fascinating individual. The inscription on her tomb stated that she was once the Queen of Egypt and the wife of the ruler. The tomb was found in the necropolis of the Old Kingdom, southwest of Cairo in Abu Sir, and it can be confidently said that the queen existed during the reign of the Nefer dynasty. She was likely the wife of the pharaoh, for whom no previous information existed in the Egyptian archives. Almost 1,200 years ago, on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, at the mouth of the Nile River in Egypt, there was a bustling city that was an important trading center. Merchants embarked on adventurous sea voyages to obtain and sell their precious goods. In its time, this city was one of the most significant hubs of its civilization, renowned for its wealth. The Greek historian Herodotus described its picturesque views of the Nile. Descriptions of the city's grandest temple, dedicated to the son of Zeus, Heracles, the mighty Greek hero, have also been preserved. From the same epics, we know that Helen of Troy and Paris visited the city at the mouth of the Nile before the Trojan War. The city was named Heracleion, but until that moment, archaeologists could not find the slightest evidence of its existence, and many believed that it was simply passed down in myths from generation to generation. Perhaps the only source of information was the mythological chronicles of Herodotus, which provided oral testimonies of people who had visited the city. It was believed that if the city existed, the Mediterranean Sea could have swallowed it up, but in the year 2000, everything changed. Frank Gaudio, an underwater archaeologist, founded the European Institute of Underwater Archaeology in 1987 with the hope of discovering ancient submerged cities. It was only in 1996 that Gaudio expanded his search to the Gulf of Abukir in Egypt, focusing on the cities that once existed along the Nile River. 4 years later, he finally hit the jackpot. In the depths of the bay, he found a well-preserved city. Frank and his team could not believe what they were seeing. How had no one stumbled upon the city before? Apparently, it was heavily covered in sediments, and when the team got rid of this special obstacle, their discoveries became monumental. It seemed like the ocean had kept the city safe, especially for their team. The archaeologists found 64 shipwrecks and 700 anchors, gold coins, statues of pharaohs, sphinxes, walls with Egyptian and Greek inscriptions, and hundreds of statues of other Egyptian gods and goddesses. But the most magnificent discovery was a 5-meter-tall statue of the god Hapi, the patron of the Nile River. Carbon dating of the granite revealed that the statue dated back to the 4th century BCE, so Frank knew he had to dig deeper. His mission to search for Heracleion continued, and in 2001 his team found the bust of Nectanebo, the founding pharaoh of the last dynasty in Egypt. The inscriptions on the bust, as well as on other artifacts, also revealed the great mystery to Frank Gaudio. Thonis and Heracleion were simply two different names for a great trading city. Thonis was the Greek version of the name Heracles. The conjecture of why the city disappeared underwater also arose. Heracleion could not withstand the rising sea level. Due to the soil characteristics in the region, the process was slow but noticeable enough. At the same time, the flooding was likely catastrophic for the city and prevented any counteraction, and so the prosperous city sank, which sounds terrifying when we imagine its flourishing splendor and greatness. If you walk through the hills near the modern city of Machada Dorp in the province of Mpumalanga in South Africa, you will come across tangled stone walls. And if you find a good vantage point, you will see circular towers and passageways. Who came up with the idea to build such mazes along the remote slopes in mountainous terrain? Even if you try to study the passages with all your might, remember that it is a device too ingenious. You can find the entrance, but the exit is a problem. This archaeological wonder has left many questions. Historians debate not only the origin of the ruins, but also their purpose. It's believed to have been a dwelling for people in the 16th century. This civilization mainly lived off agriculture and must have used the land in very smart ways to obtain good harvests. Perhaps they altered the landscape to reduce water loss. There's also the theory that they used the labyrinth as a corral for livestock. A brilliant idea, right? Building a magnificent palace for the cattle and having the chance to get lost in it. There's another version that this is just a small part of a lost city that once stood in the same place, but now lies underground, either turned into ruins by a natural disaster. There's a scientific hypothesis that the stone circles emit electromagnetic waves and sounds at specific frequencies, and that these walls were part of a Pan-African energy system intended for resonance and sound-based gold extraction. However, their purpose remains unknown, but for some reason, it's called the Place of Happiness. If you ever have the chance to travel to the central western region of Mauritania, you must definitely visit the Eye of the Sahara. At first glance, this place truly amazes with its huge circles of geometrically precise shape. It seems incredible that such a complex pattern emerged out of nowhere in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Due to the sparse population in this area and the harsh climate, you won't find local residents near these mysterious circles. This region remained virtually unexplored until the early 1960s. Scientists showed interest in it for a very special reason. This structure, called the eye or the Rashad structure, is so huge that it can be seen from space. You're not imagining things. Regardless of its origin, this remarkable object proved useful for the astronauts of the Gemini mission as a central reference point to measure their distance from Earth. Given the technological limitations of the time, it's evident that the Rashad structure was very useful as a geological formation, but its popularity also generated many theories. One of them suggests that the circular drawing of the eye is actually the result of a meteorite impact that occurred in the prehistoric days of Earth. A huge meteorite hit the desert and left an interesting pattern on the surface, not to mention the rocks found in the geological dome. In fact, the deposits and minerals found in the rocks are quite common on our planet, that is of terrestrial origin, and no remnants or fragments of a meteorite have been found near the eye yet. It was also speculated that this impact could have contributed to the emergence of new forms of life here, but this hypothesis has not been developed. Perhaps the most important thing to understand about the Rashad structure is the complexity of certain geological processes that started or took place millions of years ago. Scientists concluded that the Eye of the Sahara is a natural change in the landscape and nothing more. Lake Natron in Africa resembles the Gorgon Medusa from Greek mythology. Anyone who dared to look into its eyes would turn to stone. Now we know that Medusa is a creature from epic stories and doesn't exist in real life, but what if we told you that the mysterious and terrifying lake in Tanzania can turn anything to stone? We're not exaggerating. No one dives into Lake Natron. This place is the cradle of death, and for many years locals believed that the lake was deadly. Anyone who drank from it would end up turned to stone. Throughout the documented history of Lake Natron, locals have witnessed how birds and animals that drank water from the lake turned into gray ash. There are many petrified birds and animals on the lake's surface, as if they were living sculptures. But upon closer observation, you'd realize that they are all dead and decomposing. How many hundreds of dead animals does this horrifying lake hide in its depths throughout the centuries? This lake was one of the best-kept secrets of the African continent, and since the surrounding area is not touristy, the world knew very little about the most chilling lake in the world. The Danakil Depression, located in the Horn of Africa in the territory of Ethiopia, may be the most dangerous place on the continent, but let's break it down. The Danakil Desert is a very remote, unexplored, inhospitable, and deadly area for humans, as it is the hottest and driest region on Earth. But it's not just because of the climate that setting foot here is strongly discouraged. This place is deadly dangerous, not because of its weather. In reality, this small region on the East African tectonic fault is a true poisonous cauldron. Its pools boil with acid, and you would simply suffocate with chlorine and sulfur particles in the air. However, when viewed from above, the pools are surprisingly beautiful, and the entire area is filled with vibrant colors. The red, orange, yellow landscape of Danakil and the corrosive yellow-green color of the boiling water in the cauldron is a sight that will truly evoke a strange admiration, like all unnatural and dangerous beauty. Scientists believe that this is the only region on the planet that actively kills everything and everyone within its territory. When a group of scientists investigated the pools, they discovered that the lake's pH was 0. This water is like pure acid. Even a small sip of lake water can be deadly for anyone. Around the body of water, you will see thousands of dead or dying insects, and this is not due to the acidic water. The region itself has a high level of toxic carbon dioxide gas. If you approach the lake within 30 centimeters, you will inhale too much CO2 and die within minutes, as in a fire. So it's not surprising that the locals have given the pools the fitting nickname, the Killer Lake. Additionally, there are many small active volcanoes here in addition to the acidic lakes and clouds of poisonous gas. So every step in the territory of this Ethiopian attraction could be the last. If you enjoyed these stories, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on this intriguing content.